Make your next move with American Express Business Platinum. You'll get 5 times membership rewards points on flights and prepaid hotels booked on AmexTravel.com. Plus, enjoy access to the American Express Global Lounge Collection. And with the welcome offer of 150,000 points, your business can soar to all new heights. Terms apply. Learn more at americanexpress.com/business-platinum. Amex Business Platinum. Built for business by American Express.
When you need mealtime inspiration, it's worth shopping Kroger. For thousands of appetizing ingredients that inspire countless mouth-watering meals. And no matter what tasty choice you make, you'll enjoy our everyday low prices. Plus, extra ways to save, like digital coupons worth over $600 each week. And up to $1 off per gallon at the pump with points. So you can get big flavors and big savings. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Fuel restrictions apply.
Hello.
Hi.
This is episode 18 of the Flixwatcher Podcast.
This episode, we will be discussing the Colin Firth frenetic, action-packed comic book, superhero, spy, whatever it is.
It's a film.
Film with the delightful Michelle from Hello Magazine and awesome Adam from Fixer International.
As always, guys, we have all the show notes online at flixwatcher.tv for all the episodes, so please come and visit us there. Of course, join us on Twitter at FlixWatcherPod, and please come to iTunes, rate us, and subscribe. And as we always say, guys, all the films were available on Netflix at the time of recording. There is going to be bad language, there's going to be spoilers, and we hope you enjoy it. You've heard their voices on episodes such as Jet Li's The One and The Talented Mr. Ripley. That's Jay and Tony. But also they've got other people as Greg and there's Toby as well. But those guys are the unsung heroes of Flixwatcher Podcast, and we really want to send people their way. If you want to be a podcaster and you like the way Flixwatcher sounds, then you need to be in contact with these guys because they do all our editing and make what we do sound good. You know all the ums and ahs that you hear?
What ums and ahs? What ums and ahs?
Exactly, because they take them all out and they make it sound awesome. And they've had to deal with didgeridoos, they've had to deal with people hoovering, and they've taken all that out. So we really think these guys are top notch. If you want to start your podcast, not sure how to edit it, you need to get in contact with these guys. podcast@glpro.co.uk or on Twitter is @glprouk, and tell them that Kobe and Helen sent you and they'll give you 10% off your first order. So give them a shout.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Flixwatcher Pod, and today we are joined by Michelle and Adam. If you'd like to say hello and tell us a little bit more about where we can find you online.
Hi, I'm Michelle Johnson. I am a film journalist with Hello Magazine, and I'm on Twitter and Instagram at Shell A Johnson, which is CHELLE. That's me, really.
My name's Adam Farina. I'm MD of Fixer International, which works across entertainment media and entertainment media events, and you can't find me.
And we're here talking about Kingsman, which is Michelle's choice.
It is indeed.
Can you give us a synopsis of Kingsman and tell us why you picked it first?
Well, full disclosure, I have just come back from a week sick, and when I'm ill, I binge watch. What I binge watch for comfort films, I just need action, I need easy to follow plots, I need something that doesn't make me think too hard, but that will give me brilliant fever dreams. And Kingsman kind of does that. It's Michael Vaughan, directed by Michael Vaughan, who obviously did Kick Ass, Stardust. Matthew Vaughan. Don't I keep saying Michael?
Oh. Sweet revenge.
Sweet revenge. Matthew Vaughan, I apologise, did X-Men First Class, Kick Ass, Stardust. He based Kingsman off of a graphic novel comic book by Mark Miller.
Yeah.
Could be Mike, could be Michael, could be Martin.
Could be Mac.
Called The Secret Service. It's very loosely based, but it's basically young working class British lads played by the lovely Taron Egerton. I think it's Egerton.
I think it's Egerton, isn't it?
I've heard it said Egerton, but
I'm going to go with Egerton.
Yeah.
Egerton.
Also in Eddie the Eagle, which is another, used to be on, is it still on Netflix? But was fantastic.
Yeah.
So Taron plays a young working class lad who gets in a lot of trouble, but is then brought into this world of super secret, super elite gentleman spies by the very lovely Colin Firth, who plays Galahad. As you can probably tell by that name, obviously it's all based on the Arthurian legends, based in a tailor shop, Michael Caine as Arthur, Mark Strong as Merlin, the kind of tech support, the lovely kind of
Mark.
Q character. And it's all just very strange. While they're trying to replace one of the fallen members, Lancelot, so each of the round table gets to nominate a young rising star, most of them from Oxbridge, including a female character called Roxy, who kind of becomes Eggsy, Taron's, what would you call it?
Friend,
confidant, a little bit of sexual tension, hopefully for the sequel. And they go through their trainings. They've got that lovely, not montage, but that lovely storyline. And then on the opposite side, you've got Samuel L. Jackson as a technological entrepreneur / evil villain.
With a lisp.
With a lisp and a fear of blood and violence, assisted by a woman called Gazelle, who is kind of like Blade Runner, but the Oscar Pistorius style, but without the dodgy background, who kills people with her blades, which is kind of awesome to see. And it's just a lot of comic book violence, culminating in probably my favourite scene in one of Matthew Vaughan's films, which is Colin Firth completely decimating a church congregation when kind of poisoned by this airwave rage signal that Samuel L. Jackson's Valentine sets off. And it's just kind of delightful gore, really. To
the soundtrack of Lynyrd Skynyrd's FreeBird, which is a song that I've been trying to nail on guitar for years.
Get it on the ukulele.
I'm not sure I can get into the solo that hard on the ukulele.
You might break a few strings.
Probably, yeah.
But that's a pretty sketchy summary of Kingsman, really.
Yeah, well, it's good. So
it's pretty good synopsis there.
Definitely, yeah. Who wants to kick us off the chat about it then? What you thought? Michelle, what were your thoughts on Kingsman? How many times have you seen it before? And
I've seen it a couple of times. Saw it, obviously, being a film journalist, I saw it on one of the previews. A friend dragged me to see it, and then I saw it while feverish and horrific. Yeah, it's just really easy to watch. It's just got the right amount of hilarious violence, just witty one-liners, and Colin Firth kind of being a badass, which I just enjoy, just on a fundamental level. And Michael Caine playing a character, pretending to be posh, but also playing a character pretending to be posh, which is always a delight. And it's completely ridiculous.
Well, what do you think about the backdrop to it? Because when I was watching it, there was an awful lot of production value to the fact that they make everything. See, my problem is that the whole thing about being a sleek and sexy sort of secret agent can get overplayed very, very quickly over the years. And it's got hints and flavors of James Bond, and it's also got hints and flavors of anything that you can push a button and suddenly the wall changes into a cyanide dart, loaded with a bunch of firearms and such. And I thought it wasn't going to work I didn't think it was going to work, but the humour carried it for me.
Well, I think it's satire.
I think?
Absolutely. I think it's overly slick. I mean, it's a Savile Row tailor shop. Well, it's a secret government agency in the basement of some huge historical mansion masquerading as a Savile Row tailor shop. That's ridiculous even for a spy thriller. It's completely absurd. I think that the class stuff, the overtones of the kind of class distinction that everyone who's working class is kind of doing nothing, and then everyone in the secret agency is super, very, very well spoken. And just
does it feel a bit like Harry Potter almost?
Yeah, totally, but with parachutes that don't open,
which would be difficult.
Yeah.
Well, actually, because you've got that spell, don't you?
And pugs and dogs, which is adorable.
The dog was very cute.
Oh, so cute.
What kind of dog was it?
Pug.
Was it a pug?
Yeah, it wasn't going to get any bigger.
No.
Ever.
Thought it was a bulldog.
Well, no, I don't. Ironically, I'm a dog lover, but
pug's not for you.
No, you see, what my problem is that you can put him in a handbag.
You need a big dog,
and I just need a dog.
At one scene,
or
he put
a really nice.
He put it into his flapjack, didn't he?
Yeah,
flapjack.
Flapjacket. His jacket. And that's the thing I have with dogs, is that if I look at it, I once saw a sort of a really cool internet photo with 3 pugs dressed up as characters, or at least in the wardrobe of Game of Thrones.
Right.
I thought that's wonderful, but I didn't identify them as pugs. I was like, that's just really cool. But now whenever I see like a dog that's no bigger than a ruler, I just think, someone's put that in a handbag and just carried it around. Or
is it just that we need to get you a really nice handbag for Christmas?
Yes.
To put your pug in.
Pick through this facade, I tell you. But no, I mean, coming back to the movie, but there were other things as well, though, that happened in the film, which, looking at it, that's why I wasn't initially interested in it, because basically you've got a chav who makes it great.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't like chavs. I don't like anyone who can kind of go around, you know, with sort of Louis Vuitton or that sort of weird baseball cap thing that goes on.
But he does parkour.
Yeah, well, fantastic.
Which just cracks
well,
me
I do
up.
origami. You know, I can fold you into a swan if I need to. But no, it's just one of those. It's just one of those weird ones where I think the movie looked amazing, but it just dichotomized the fact of the sort of the elite gentleman's secret society that was full of sort of assassins and the ability to be very effective, and you're bringing in something I think socially, I just have a bit of an edge to, including dogs that you can put into handbags. But no, I mean, I thought it was really cool, but I do think you pick up on something specifically, was that it made certain scenes, not necessarily part of the common thread story, really, really, really cool, which was the ultra-violence scene in the church. There are just elements where you also sort of, I think, have a better movie than what you'd expect.
The thing is that I found about Kingsman, and the reason I'm so fond of it as I can't concentrate, I need some entertainment, and this I think is pure entertainment. There are things where it really falls down, and that is the simplicity of some of the characters. Like you say, you've got that, it's satire, but it's not.
There's not much to the characters.
Deft. Yeah. You've also not got any, in my view, decent representation of kind of people of colour in London. I mean, you've got Samuel L. Jackson, and then you've got this huge working class secondary cast, and the only black guy in the pub, presumably East or South East London, is Eggsy's mate. He's the only one.
Well, no, you got Eggsy's mate, and then on the other guys, there's another person of colour.
Was he kind of sitting in the back?
No, they're both involved. You had Eggsy's mates, and then you had the other gang, so they had representation on both sides. But
you see,
in the main characters.
Yeah, but there wasn't in the main character. There wasn't in the Kingsman flock.
But actually, saying this though is, I think, Samuel L. Jackson, when he's in a movie, can completely. It doesn't matter if you're black, white, red, all over. Okay, the second he's in a movie, you've just basically got someone who's epitomized as the blackest guy in the room, and he's literally someone who will, completely take over, I think, a lot of scenes, character types, to the point where you've got someone who, if we look back at the character and history of Samuel L. Jackson, he's like the biggest actor, like pound for pound. He's like,
oh, really?
And he's just done so many movies where he injects his level of archetype, character type, sort of a strong, sassy, anything he does is just amazing. And I think a lot of the time he can overshadow anyone else who's in the movie. It doesn't matter about race. It doesn't matter about whatever.
No, but the point that I was making is that if you're looking at it in terms of in the pitfalls of it, in the simplicity of it, and that's part of the simplicity. Does that make sense? Like when you were saying that you were talking about, it's just that a chav makes good.
Yeah.
There's hugely posh people. There's huge working class people, and that is the dichotomy. It doesn't represent London if it's set in London, so there isn't kind of a visual representation.
How was the comic?
Very, very different, hugely different. Not in terms of representation, just a totally different story, different names.
But how old is it though? So I mean,
2012.
Sorry, I've got no idea.
Recent. 2012.
Okay, so it's recent. Okay.
I don't know. This is one of those films where I don't think there's any need to kind of draw kind of like
not in that universe.
a meaning out of it in terms of representation.
No, exactly. That's what I meant.
It's chav gone good. There's that funny moment where it says, "Have you seen what ends up being Educating Rita?" No, my Fair Lady.
Oh, My Fair Lady. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's referring to other stories where there's been
This
someone.
is Pretty Woman.
Yeah,
Is a reference.
Yeah.
And what's the other one? I can't remember the first one.
Pygmalion.
No.
I don't know. I don't know why that came to my mind. But there's that. So that's the stories they're referencing there, and it's the one person plucked out of
Trading Places.
Trading Places.
Yeah. There you go.
It says plucked out from a situation where you're not a disadvantaged situation, and you've been given access to a world that you hadn't.
Yeah,
particularly
it is very
considered.
much My Fair Lady with guns. That's how we should have synopsized it.
Now I understand.
Yeah, there you go.
But yeah, I just thought it's one of those films I wouldn't have thought too much about it.
But Samuel L. Jackson has that sort of presence when you can, and I sort of say this with all sort of candor. When you look at something that is sort of what's seen as being traditionally British, and then offset with sort of a more sort of contemporary sociological lower middle class strata of, okay, right, well I'm going to be the underdog and I'm going to come up, and then you cast someone like Samuel L. Jackson. He changes every movie that he's been in, And I'm not to say that that's sort of any sort of social commentary, but it makes it difficult then to appreciate other elements of how you watch a film and how you watch a movie, I think. I mean, again, when we talk about sort of movies like, sort of Trading Places and, with Eddie Murphy being so powerful, but then also other elements of films that he's been in, he's the staple. He becomes what, if your attention and on your sort of mind's eye is going to draw elsewhere, because to be refreshed, having him in a movie achieves that.
Yeah.
So.
Well, back in the 80s and 90s.
Well,
I mean, I think we can just all agree he's just a cool motherfucker, really.
Yeah,
Samuel L. Jackson or Eddie Murphy or both.
Well,
Samuel L. Jackson.
Samuel, yeah.
But that lisp thing, did that get to people a bit?
A little bit.
It was a bit annoying, but he did it's on purpose. And I actually Googled, why does Samuel L. Jackson have a lisp in The Kingsman?
What did you find?
And it was, I think he wanted to do it. He approached Matthew Vaughan and said, I want to do it because obviously villains aren't really seen as like kind of having impediments like that. And he wanted it to be sort of memorable. But it is on purpose, and it's not kind of because he had, I don't know, something wrong with his teeth. And
I got that it was on purpose, but I didn't see the. That kind of ties in with the fear of blood and seeing.
It's a very weak man for a villain. You expect someone who's kind of.
Yeah, he doesn't really do any fighting or anything like that.
No, not at all.
I mean, this might be sort of Sam Jackson as an actor or whatever, but what I've noticed in his more contemporary roles is obviously, when you get to the status that he's achieved, he can implement something in the same way that Tom Cruise, when he was doing Tropic Thunder, sort of brought in this creativity, which was, I think, sort of completely unique. You're like, oh God, this isn't going to work. Having, what's his name in Tropic Thunder? Does anyone else?
Ben Stiller?
No, Tom Cruise.
The character.
Oh, no idea what the character's called.
Well, when he starts
Tom
dancing.
Cruise's character. That's
Yeah,
how
it's Tom Cruise. Well, Tom Cruise's character starts sort of, moving around and dancing and such. And I think when you get, exactly, Michelle is dancing literally right now in front of us. Honestly, when you get something into a character like that, you can kind of hold on to it. So even though no one might have mentioned a lisp or some kind of idiosyncrasy or something that's very sort of small character base, because you have that status, you can bring it in and you make it work. Yeah. Has anyone seen Miss Peregrine's School for
50 Children? Isn't it?
Yeah.
I've not seen it yet. No.
He didn't do anything remotely sort of creative or unique for that, other than be a scary motherfucker with the contact lenses and everything else. And I just think that when he sort of needed to be a bad guy for this movie, he had to find something that was twisted and unique. Well,
it's interesting that you say that. I think that it's just. I mean, I didn't think that far into it. I literally just thought, this is just a hilariously funny movie with lots of
having a
comic
lot of
book
fun
violence.
doing it.
Yeah, and the whole thing is so stylized. It's got exactly the same beats as First Class. It's completely ridiculous. It's
X-Men First Class.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's obviously Matthew Vaughan. I keep wanting to say Michael. Matthew Vaughan and Jane Goldman wrote this adapted screenplay, and so you do just get that ridiculous gold tinged. High, just
it's very frenetic.
Yeah.
Well, they come from good stock,
stops.
don't they? Because did Jane Goldman do
Kick Ass as well?
Yeah.
So they've been a solid team now for a while, and they've, like same with Marvel films, they've worked out what works.
Yeah.
They get a massive cast, very star-studded. Occasionally, maybe getting an actor to play a role that you don't expect. Big show pieces, lots of ultra-violent, very slick, broad humour. And they just managed to make it engaging throughout the whole film, and they managed to make a lot of money and reach a very, very big demographic.
So what do you think? We talked about slick and we talked about the ultra violence, but I want to talk a bit about those fight scenes. And the reason I want to talk about it is I've seen films recently like Logan, John Wick 1 and 2, and what's that film set in the Philippines?
Oh, The Raid.
The Raid, yeah. So I've really come to love those kind of films where things seem a lot more visceral and real, and the fight scenes more, you feel the punches coming.
Yeah.
Kingsman is ultra. There's lots and lots of violence going on in there, and we'll talk about the church scene as an example, I'm sure. But it had that kind of gloss and had that kind of CGI sheen over it. That kind of, for me, watching it again for over the past couple of days, took a bit away from it.
Yeah.
Having seen recently Logan, where you think see Logan's
there's always
blades going through there.
There's always an escalation. I mean, I remember watching Kingsman for the first time, and just thinking that the character Gazelle, was amazing because of her. She's got these sort of prosthetic feet, that will just and I've never seen that outside of a James Bond movie,
That's a good point.
where there's a bit of creativity to how one of the hench people or one of the additional sort of side characters actually is an attention grabber and scene stealer.
Even in the posters, she just looks incredible.
And there's a lot, and to kind of take advantage of that, I think is amazing. I think it's very rarely done.
Yeah,
it takes a certain sort of confident stance to be able to incorporate a character that does that, because it also empowers people.
It's very Tarantino.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think the ultraviolence in general is.
That's what I was thinking.
Masking it with humour and music.
That's like a Kill Bill type of
feel to it.
Yeah.
But then you mentioned how you've seen more recent films, such as Logan.
Yeah.
And sometimes you think, well, actually, okay, now that's being done as mainstream. Well, it's actually not. Each one is a snapshot of the time where people, producers, directors made a confident decision to say, right, we're going to bring this into the story, we're going to make it work. And it does, and it makes it more interesting to watch, especially with the ultraviolence side of things.
Yeah.
So I'm with you on that one.
Well, it wouldn't work with the comedic side of things.
Yeah.
At all. The Raid is not a funny film, it's an excellent film.
Yeah.
But there's not many comic beats in that, and you couldn't, it would be hard to reconcile them both together.
But it's like Logan. Logan is this beautiful swan song about new relationships and old relationships. And
what's a swan song?
It's sort of a final farewell, kind of it's the fat lady singing. And Logan is very much that. Like you kind of you feel very, very strongly in each scene. I mean, even the trailer with Johnny Cash singing Her over the top of it, that kind of exemplifies the feel of the movie. You couldn't have Tarantino, Matthew Vaughn style, hilarious, bright red blood, ultra violence in the middle of kind of Professor X losing his mind and Logan fighting for his life and fighting for a child. It's like, you can't have that. It doesn't make sense. It's genre. So in the same vein, this isn't an emotional movie at all. It's just people kicking butt.
But saying that though, and I think we sort of pick up on a kind of an interesting angle from the Logan violence aspect of it, because has anyone seen Train to Busan?
Yes, no. Amazing film.
I recently saw that. I kept screwing up the name of that. I was like, Road to Busan. But that is just talking about the violence that's involved in it. I thought it was very kindred to 28 Days Later on how it changes the way that people see how an action sequence or a sort of a scene of intensity and violence has now changed, and how we incorporate much higher stakes into it. So it's not just about, well, a zombie's coming, so I'm going to stab it in the head or shoot it in the head. It's actually, you've got to fight it.
Yeah.
And on the same way that Logan, who is just, now seen as more of a person than a character. So Logan obviously being Wolverine and Wolverine being Logan, this one really shows the person and what he has to go through. Particular to the Kingsman is that I think that it really highlights, again, how characters have to fight and how characters have to get involved in the ruck to establish their own brand and narrative. And I thought that worked well for Kingsman. I mean, I had some, points about it that we'll get to when we rate it, but I don't think it was so flawless in the way that it dealt with ultraviolence that it was unique. So
no,
it's definitely not unique.
It's not unique.
I think that the things that I like about it, also the things that I think I don't like about it, it is kind of a remake, really, of Kick Ass. They've sort of remade it in the style, and they've taken a comic book and made it into a film and made it very successful, and it's very slick, and it's got the same kind of actors in it as well. So I think because it's so slick, because it's so knowing, because it's so stylized, it all works, but it's nothing new that we've seen from them. They are sort of recycling the same ideas, which isn't necessarily a bad thing if you like that. And also, it is a lot of fun, and you can't take this seriously, and everyone in there is basically a little bit of a stereotype because they have to. And starting off with a spy genre anyway, it's got to be ridiculous. So for someone who is not a James Bond fan at all, I mean, I did enjoy it, but spy genre is not really my biggest one. And but it is a lot of fun.
Yeah.
How much of a vehicle do you think this was,
Taron?
Yeah, in terms of what he's now doing as a complete opposite with Eddie the Eagle.
I think he's been a rising star for a while.
Usually.
They wouldn't put him in this kind of film if they didn't see some kind of stock in him before.
and then take him onto more what quote unquote serious projects.
That's it. Yeah, one of my friends is a cinematographer and has worked on quite a few things from Shameless through to films, Hollywood films and stuff like that. And he's seen Taron in a few different things going forward. And he's just like, yeah, keep an eye on this kid. He's got a lot behind him. Like Jack O'Connell, for example.
Dexter Fletcher was Eddie the Eagle.
Yeah. So I mean, he must have.
Yeah.
Taron's brilliant, and I think what this did for him was also make him a little bit of showcase the fact that he can actually be a leading man. He can be a little bit sexy. He can be a little bit more action, because he's got that kind of face and way. He's a very, very accomplished character actor, and so that can be a hard transition. And I think he manages it really well within those stereotypes and just within that complete ridiculousness. So it's a really good vehicle for him to get a wider audience.
What was the Tom Hardy movie, the Cray movie?
The Cray Legend.
Yeah.
Legend, and he was in that, wasn't
he? Was,
yeah.
He played,
and he stood out.
He did.
Even against Tom Hardy as being sort of...
Both the Krays. Yeah, so he's one of the Krays' boyfriends.
Yes.
Or love interests.
But again, I think either bone structure or just charisma and presence.
Yeah.
He's definitely got a few feathers in his cap. It was very cool to watch.
So, should we talk about the church scene? Was anyone... I know people who went to see it at the cinema when it came out, and they came out and like, fucking hell, man, that church scene was horrific.
Did you say horrific or terrific?
Horrific.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I thought it was terrific.
No, in terms of like, they didn't that level of, I don't know what their pedigree, I don't know if that's the right way to phrase it, but I don't know what kind of films they'd seen before. I don't know if they'd seen like Kill Bill beforehand. I don't know if they'd watched many martial arts kind of films. But
maybe they just watched loads of Colin Firth films.
Yeah,
and
they just
went in and had a different experience to what a lot of people did.
Well, this is right, because Colin Firth in this is wicked. I'm not really a big Colin Firth fan. I didn't really like what he did with Fever Pitch. I don't really care that much for the Diary, Bridget Jones, that much. I think
he is my mum's favourite Mr. Darcy. So there's value to that.
He's incredible in A Single Man.
He is.
Well, in Single Man,
yeah,
that's a great film with him in. But this for me is awesome. This for me is awesome. I can see how he's a great actor. I can see how he's a good actor, but he's not been in roles that have really interested me. But this was just.
What do you think about Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy?
Great film. Yeah, really enjoyed
but
that.
him being good in it.
He was one of a. It was a cast. It was a strong cast there.
It was an ensemble that film. I don't think you could replace any of that. I think it's such a good film.
Yeah, I need to watch that again. Actually,
Netflix, get on it.
Think down it. But this was, when he says like manners maketh the man, closing the pub door, and it's him fighting. Yes, for the first time.
There is something wonderful about seeing Colin Firth kicking ass.
It was brilliant, wasn't it? And then we go to the church scene, and he's fighting. He doesn't realise why he's doing it. But that's such an intense scene. I was watching the film, and then watched that scene again, because there's so many. How they put it together is actually really frenetic and really.
It's beautifully edited.
Beautifully edited, and in contrast to John Wick and The Raid, where everything's been choreographed a bit. They have edited it and put blood splatter in there, put things. I don't know how they made it so interesting the way they've done it, because it's almost like a CGI effect. It's almost like I don't know. It's almost like
it's difficult to articulate, isn't it? When you watch something and it just connects.
Yeah.
And it's slightly different to what you've seen, and it just give it again. We're talking about a movie which is essentially translated from being a comic to a movie that has to have the characters. It has to have that violence level to it, because that's why people watch these kind of films. They want excitement. They don't often appreciate the character work. And yeah, like you said, when the bolt goes in and it's action time.
Manners maketh the man.
Yeah.
I think for me, if it weren't for that church scene, this would be a much less interesting film. That scene, I think, is the linchpin on which this whole film kind of revolves, because it is so unexpected. It is hilariously funny.
Yeah.
It is.
You see,
gloriously violent.
So to be devil's advocate, some people would say that's not what I brought my kid to watch, or that's not what I came
is
to.
This?
It was a 15.
I'm not sure you should take your kids.
Well, on the flip side, once it goes into home entertainment, which again will be sort of appropriately rated, I think it was surprising. I mean, again, I think you should just get rid of the rating system and just be a responsible adult. I think I saw Jaws way too early as a child. But on the flip side, now I do get the fact that. The church scene was great, but it was very, very Raid. It was very, very visceral. And I don't think that obviously defined the story in kind of, well, this is why you're watching the movie. But you can watch it and say, well, actually, no, this is about spies. This is about elitism and violence and being the best. And when, the shit hits the fan, what are you going to do?
But also it's about being sheep. So the setup to this, obviously, is Valentine, Samuel L. Jackson's villain, has created this device via phones, which we all have.
SIM cards, yeah.
SIM cards, that creates this almost like you referenced 28 Days Later earlier. 28 Days? Which one's?
28 Days Later.
28 Days Later. I always get confused between that and the Sandra Bullock movie.
Oh, 28 Days.
With Viggo Mortensen.
About alcoholism.
Yes, exactly. Where there's the rage, almost like the rage virus. So that's a very similar impact there, that people can be sheep, people can be led to do really grotesque things. And what's lovely about, not lovely, but what's great about the church thing is it completely illustrates that anyone can be led, anyone can be affected by just these really simple, subtle implications. And so no one is better than anyone else. Everyone in that church is trying to kill each other.
Yeah, that got proved.
It's just Colin's better.
Yeah. And there's some really cool bits in that where he's shooting the gun, loses the bullets, and then he shoves it into their face. I'm like, I've never seen that before.
If not for that, the plot wouldn't make any sense. Like, that is so necessary to the plot, but so gloriously violent.
So one of our friends, chap called Ben, who's on the film quiz, when I've talked to him about the Kingsman, I think when it first came out in the cinema, the scene that most affected him was, and Ben's a parent, is the scene where Eggsy's mum.
Ben Dodd.
That's a wonderful
Ben Eggsy's mum, played by Samantha Janus, she's affected by the same SIM cards brainwave malfunction thing, and she's trying to break through the door of the bathroom to basically destroy her baby, her child. And he said for him that was the hardest scene to watch of the film, and the rest of it kind of pales in comparison. I guess that shows a bit of emotion where the other ones aren't emotion, that they're just kind of cool scenes, I think.
No, I mean, I agree. I mean, having something like that is to watch, I think people connect with emotionally.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, you might also find in the same way that people who take church to be a particularly emotional experience, to suddenly say, well, actually, that, of course, I don't think, that particular scene could happen, but it's finding a place of peace that suddenly gets a bit of a tornado thrown into it. I think that's
the shock value of that scene is very much that, especially because it's so very English. It's very Middle England. But obviously the actual scene itself is in the Bible Belt in America.
Yeah.
So you've got those two very, not quaint, is quaint the word? This very quaint setting.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good description. I mean, I know exactly what you're saying, and I think it's just, it takes something that can be violent like that, and people don't like that. And Ben's a nice friend of mine. He's very intelligent, but on the flip side, he's emotionally receptive as a parent.
Yeah,
as many people are. So they're gonna have.
Well, he didn't like Inside Out.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Ben, what are you doing?
Oh, he had issues with it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
But I mean, on the flip side, though, that's these microcosms of audiences are the ones that this movie has to appeal to, and this is what people have to understand: is that when you go through the production of a movie like this, which is directors, producers, studio execs, everything else, they're looking at these scenes with a fine-tooth comb, going, "What is this? Is this gonna? Could that fly?" And every so often there will be someone who can provide intelligent commentary on something, like Ben, or like anyone else who's watching it, like us, and say, well, that's what it meant, and that's our understanding of it. But I mean, again, Kingsman is a good movie just because it challenges a lot of what you might expect this movie to be.
It sets itself up in a way that you can really play with extremes.
Yeah.
And I kind of hope, I think there's going to be a sequel. I really hope.
There is.
There's a sequel on the way.
Yeah, I hope that it does more of that. I hope that it doesn't fall into the sequel curse of just doing the same thing over and over again.
And Colin Firth does come back, is listed in IMDb.
Yes.
So we'll see how
According to Matthew Vaughan, they want to bring him back. They don't know how, but the idea so far, or at least when I read this article, either as an evil twin or a ghost.
What, he's dead?
Yeah. Oh, no. Sorry, guys.
Spoilers.
Spoiler alert.
I mean, the sequel probably will be exactly the same, but with a different story.
Yeah.
I think the thing I had with the church scene was that I thought it was just a little bit too excessive.
Right.
And I think by making it the length it was, it became less violent as it went on and lost a little bit of its impact.
So you were kind of, well, I as it was going on, the first few times I saw it, I just kind of thought, okay, how's the next person going to die?
Yes,
Colin Firth's clearly not going to die, but how's the next person? I was just, I was impressed by the inventiveness of what was going on.
I kind of felt that the excess of length added to the humour because I got over the shock and then I was just like, I know it's awful, but this is really, really funny.
But I think Helen brings up a really good point, because when you start to think about, what starts to entertain you, is it that next escalation, or is it actually because they managed to segment something like this into the movie? Is it shock value? I mean, what would have, if you could have had any sort of influence, what would have made it a better scene for you?
I don't know. I just thought it was just a little bit too excessive. Maybe in the length.
Self-indulgent.
Yeah, a little bit.
You say the length. I mean, would it just been easier to?
No.
It's a long. FreeBird's a long song.
It is quite a long song.
Yeah, it was the whole song.
I mean, there are quite a lot of inventive, violent uses, which I am quite a big fan of. Like particularly the entrance of Gazelle is particularly good.
Yeah, slices through Jack Davenport.
Don't give everything away.
Well,
We've got to have some surprises.
We say at the top of the show the
I
spoilers.
know, but we could have
language.
just all winked at each other and went, "It's really good. You'll really enjoy that." So it is a lot of inventiveness. I mean, I know we've not touched on it yet, but the thing that offended me most is obviously the ending.
Yeah.
Which I think really.
Now, hang on a second. How much do you want to give away now?
Well, it's well publicised, and obviously
And
Jane
discussed at the time
Goldman and Matthew Vaughan have obviously gone on to defend it. But
So tell us what the ending was, and what did Jane Goldman and
anyone
Matthew Vaughan
tuning
say?
in should turn out now and resume their podcast.
in a film where one of the villains is a very empowered, kick-ass female, and one of the other successful trainee spies is also a kick-ass female who's very strong.
I guess we should highlight that in the selection process, Eggsy doesn't actually get chosen. He makes it to the final two,
very awesome Roxy.
But it's Roxy that gets chosen to be the next Kingsman.
So we've got a film that is written by a very powerful and foxy woman with two very strong female characters, but features a Scandinavian princess who feels that a reward for our heroes is anal sex.
Yeah.
Which I don't think sits.
No,
and
I
I
agree.
think it's offensive to everyone. I think it's offensive to our hero. I think it's offensive to the film. And I don't believe that they were just riffing on, the Roger Moore films, and they quote,
the old,
and if they
quote,
thought they
it's
were,
meant to be empowering to the woman. And
is that what they said?
this is it, yeah. And I've had a conversation with someone about
that tells
this.
us more about Jane Goldman's relationship with Jonathan Ross than we ever needed to know, quite frankly.
Yeah, so I think, and I knew that bit was coming because someone had mentioned that before and said that they felt that really had an effect on their experience of the film. And I think it's a shame that had to happen in it.
Yeah.
Because I don't like that. And I don't think it's very funny. And I think it's a shame because they have got some great female characters in it and they're awesome. And it cheapens a lot of everything about it. It stops being very clever and goes for kind of a cheap shot, which the whole of the film, throughout the film, doesn't go for the cheap shots.
It resists it, yeah.
They do things very cleverly. They do the violence very cleverly. Like in the church scene, it's very inventive. The spy genre is so well trodden that they kind of make things a little bit more tongue-in-cheek. When he's going through the weapons, it's like, oh, this is that. And it's like, oh, no, it's not that, blah, blah, blah. The training is very inventive. It's so clever to then have that moment just is a bit like,
is it a forgivable
really?
moment? Is it just kind of
It
thing,
should have hit the cutting room floor. It should absolutely have been swapped.
Yeah, it puts a sour note on the film, and I think it's
not that kind of film.
It wouldn't
And
even.
It's something that you'd
mattered.
expect to see in like an Austin Powers film.
well, not
It's
even
that-
then. Well, yeah,
Kind
No,
of.
It is,
I agree.
actually.
Not even then, potentially. But is it something that is? I remember a story from someone, and it was talking about Hellboy, and I don't know if anyone knows Hellboy, but it's a sort of Ron Perlman and a really cool comic book series developed from Mike Mignola's story of a kid who's basic from hell and comes into World War II Earth, and they were developing this story for the movie. And a studio exec, well, does Hellboy have to be red? Does he have to be red? And it just sounds like, from what you're talking about now, that someone said, we need to throw in some dirt.
yeah.
We need to get, we're ultra-violence. We're talking about people stabbing, a gun through someone and, sort of this, the whole bit. Let's incorporate some really sort of, taboo
But I think what really, really makes it stand out is that there isn't. I mean,
That's
isn't
the
a
only
romance.
sex
There
in
is-
it.
No,
There's no,
there is no
romance.
other
The only
inklings
other
to anything.
romance is an abusive relationship.
What, Eggsy's mum and...
Eggsy's mum
Yeah.
and stepdad.
Yeah.
So it is really, really interesting when you put those two things together, side by side, and just think it is literally like, well, we've done the ultra violence, we now need to do ultra sex because we don't have enough sex in this movie.
I'd agree with that. I'd agree. You're sort of almost upending everything.
But you don't need that. It is just a really cheap,
In
I
a
thought-
film
joke.
that there's so much violence in as well.
Yeah.
The connotations is
Yeah.
just. I mean, they're obviously making a joke of it
And
because
she's
it's the
literally in a
woman
prison
who
cell.
proposes it, which
Mm.
is where they're saying it's a joke. But then, at what point does this Scandinavian princess who throughout this is
in a cell.
and also, but the thing is, she's
rebelling against the...
exactly so
yeah.
she's seen very much as a stronger character, and she doesn't want to, go in with his plan, and then she suddenly becomes a whore for whatever purposes in that role. It's just, where did it come from? Why is it there? And why didn't they just stick with having these great female characters? It's completely unnecessary for the character to have that, because at no point does he need some kind of sexual release, because he's having such a great time with his buddies and being a spy.
And he seems super pleased with himself as well. Goes and gets a champagne corks, and
that's not any of his character,
No.
because all of his character we see is he's trying to protect his mum.
Yeah.
He's a bit of a rough un.
Yeah.
But
good-natured,
he's got
really.
a good heart.
because he stops.
So it's just
He crashes
is it
the
ever
car
forgiv-
instead of hitting the fox.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
But is it ever forgivable to wear a cap like that, though? I mean,
Depends
you're
where
doing
you're from.
parkour.
Depends where you're from.
I'm just going to say it's not. It's just,
I'd like to talk a bit about the other characters, about the other people, Mark Strong and
I love Mark
I love
Strong.
Mark Strong.
Because Mark Strong
Samantha
doesn't make a
Janison.
bad
There
film.
aren't, there aren't many more man you can trust.
Jack Davenport as well, I think,
Absolutely.
before going into the scores. So, yeah. What
Mark
do you think
Strong.
about those?
Just,
Mark
just
Strong.
say Mark Strong, yeah.
Mark Strong.
Mark
If you've
Strong.
never seen a Mark Strong film, then your life is just not worth living.
You need to see all of them. I can't think of a bad one.
I think I did watch a bad one once, or I haven't watched it because it's not very
Was
good.
he in
so
Kick-Ass 2?
yes,
Yeah.
no. Oh, no.
I don't know.
He was in Kick-Ass 1, wasn't he?
My favourite
Or
Mark
was that
Strong
Stanley
film.
Tucci? I sometimes get them mixed up.
Yeah, either
What?
or. Mark Strong is for me two things. One, he was in Sunshine.
I still haven't. That's one of my blind
That
spots, actually.
is no pun intended. But he was in Sunshine, and I remember speaking to a makeup artist, and he said that Mark Strong is literally the nicest man I've ever met, ever. And he'd work with. I can't say other names now because the sort of the comparator is that
He's
Mark
also
Strong-
in Tinker, isn't he?
I think his head
He
is
didn't
on
do
Yes,
Yeah.
he is. Yeah. So Mark Strong
There's
literally
only,
was
like,
covered
9
from
actors
head
in
to
Britain,
toe
aren't
in
there?
makeup
Yeah.
for Sunshine, and was just 8 hours, through and through, the nicest fella, according to this makeup artist. But also, if you look, and the second one is that if you go to View Cinemas, he's the guy who has the voiceover to say, "Hello, turn off your phone, don't text," all this other stuff. And you're thinking like, I've heard that name before, but when you look at his catalogue, he's been in so many movies.
Absolutely.
And it's just someone that when you hear the voice and you sort of recognise as being just absolute class and quality. I don't think I've seen a bad Mark Strong film at all.
We
No.
don't think there is one.
I don't
Wow.
think there is one. He cuddled me once.
Ah,
Well, okay, mic drop.
I mean, I say cuddle. It was just one of those brief, the air kiss hug things that you do when you've seen someone a few times at a junket. And
oh,
it's like,
he recognises
hi
you.
again, that sort of thing. But what was like 3 times
When
in
you
2
chest
days.
bump, then you can talk
When
about
I
it,
chest
okay?
bump with Mark Strong,
Yeah,
believe
exactly.
me, that'll be on this show.
There you go.
Who else? There's Samantha Janus. One of my
Samantha
favourite.
From
Janice.
Game On.
From
Game
one
On.
of my favourite.
Game On, yeah.
Nice.
Honestly, she has aged well. She has done very well for herself, considering the fact that most actresses who would have started off at a particular sort of part in their life, and they can either go ahead or they won't. I mean, Matthew Corden is a really good example of this because, Janice was again Game On, TV show, TV series, and it just became an acting career for her. And she was really good in the film, really good, very solid.
I think the weakest link is probably Michael Caine. He's a bit flat. Maybe they could have done with someone a bit snazzier.
Who's the snazzy Michael Caine?
I don't know. I just thought he was a bit.
It
And did
wasn't
you-
a reach for him.
Did
No.
you
let's
did you
face it.
recognise Luke Skywalker?
I did, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It took me
He looks very short, doesn't he, in this film?
I don't
think he is,
I don't think
anyway.
He's a
yeah.
giant of a man. Trust me.
Yeah. Well, I think, guys, it's time for the popcorn interlude.
Popcorn review.
My
Right.
favourite part of the interlude.
Very generous. Popcorn Shed have given us some of their secret family recipe popcorns to try, and this flavour we've got is pecan pie. Big popcorn fans here. If you don't like popcorn, then really? So that sound you can hear is popcorn
that's really
satisfaction.
nice.
It's very nice. We've
It's
tried
less,
it.
it's less sweet.
So this is caramel popcorn with golden roasted pecans. Just to describe
Is it pecans or pecans?
It's
It's tomatoes,
Let's
isn't it?
call the whole thing off, man. switch this recording off right now. So cheers to the Popcorn Shed guys with a secret family recipe. Should we move on to the scoring?
Yeah, let's do some
do it.
scoring.
I don't know why I'm
Here
doing this
come the
musical interlude.
scores.
Here comes the scores. Kingsman. So, Michelle, this is your choice.
Oh, God.
Recommendability score.
pressure.
I think it's a right laugh, so I'm going to say 4.
Nice. Sharp and to the point. Adam.
I agree. I think it's a nice sort of film to recommend to anyone who's over the age of 18 and not my mum's age or background, because she would love it for the fact that Colin Firth's in it and then get mortified the fact that she'd seen him stab someone with a gun.
Destroying
Yeah.
like 100 people in a church.
Yeah.
Helen.
Even though I'm massively disappointed for that ending, I am really disappointed, guys. I'm going to give it a 4. It's
Just skip the ending.
yeah, maybe switch it off.
Skip the ending.
I was quite surprised. I wondered, because I saw this in the cinema, and I thought briefly that Netflix might just cut that out because there was a big upheaval about it, which I agree with. I didn't think there was any point in it.
It's not very funny.
No,
They're the only
it's not.
two people who
crap.
find it funny. I think it's also it's very dated, really.
Yeah. Basically, for the sequel, do better.
Yeah. I'm going to give it a 4. Yeah, there will be people who will be offended by it all the way through. And
Yeah, if you've only ever seen like The King's Speech or Sense and Sensibility,
actually,
or
You should
the King's
definitely
Speech was a
watch
good
it.
Colin Firth.
you know
I really
those
like
kind
that,
of Colin Firth films, and
Yeah.
that's the Firth that you like. You
But even
might
then,
not
though,
enjoy
even
this.
that movie took risks.
Yeah.
And I like the fact that a movie like this, even though it's completely different material and everything else, took risks. And they had to upend it. But like you said beforehand, there are certain things that keep the enjoyment level plateaued, and then they can spike.
Yeah.
With what you're paying for the movie for.
Repeat viewing score, Michelle.
I would say maybe... Oh, God, I don't know. Maybe 3? I would say watch the church scene on YouTube like again and again and again, though.
That's
Because I do. Whenever I need cheering up, just Colin Firth killing people.
so I'm going to call you out on that one. That's not the movie. That's the scene, and that is scene.
Exactly. That's
yeah,
what I'm saying. So 3 for the film. It's definitely worth a second watch or whatever,
Okay.
apart from the ending, or at least the best bits.
Hmm.
If we were just basing the scene, I'd be like 10 out of 5. Come on.
Well, I'm going to say 2. I think that this is a great movie to watch and enjoy, but it's see it at the cinema, see it once when you've got nothing else to do, Netflix and chilling.
Yeah, it's not a thinker.
Exactly.
So that's a 2 for Adam. Helen.
I'm not sure. I think I'm going to go... See, the thing is with this, it's one of those films that you could watch in the background
Yeah.
and still kind of enjoy.
Totally.
And also, I think I'm the only one who hadn't seen it before.
That's why I meant to ask you. It's your first time watching
it's
it.
the first time I saw it, because I think I was just put off by the trailer. I thought I was like, I don't really want to watch this kind of a satire on spy films. And then obviously heard about the ending, which made me less inclined to watch it. But for what it is, it's pretty enjoyable. And maybe I'd watch the sequel. Maybe, I'm not sure. I want to watch it again if it was on. I probably wouldn't choose to. So probably go 2.5 maybe. It's a pretty easy watch. I quite like the bits where they're training.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
it's quite a nice setup.
I like the friendships in it,
Yeah.
I think. Like, I like the relationships.
I think it's good. I think the
It's just easy viewing.
and the training, like little bits that they do to them, I think are quite clever.
Yeah. I'd say, I'd give it a 2.5-ish. It's a good, fun film. I wouldn't necessarily put it on. It'd be in the background whilst I'm cooking. And
You don't need to watch it again. It's not like you're going to miss anything.
Yeah,
the
you
first
don't
time
need to
round.
concentrate.
Yeah.
Which is kind of what I look for in a repeat viewing, if I'm totally
Yeah.
honest.
Absolutely. Small screen score.
it's all right. 2.5, I guess, dead in the middle.
You said you watched it at press screening first.
Yeah, I like it on the big screen. I mean, like I say, it's not a thinker. I don't feel like you get the high octane violence is great in high definition. It's great, but again, it's not so convoluted.
Do you think your review has changed because it's a press screener? There's sort of an amplification of the experience that if you had just gone to
you
the
don't
cinema.
get hype. You don't have any pre-hype. I didn't see any trailers before it. I think the great thing about press screenings is that you do see things before there's any chatter because you're creating the chatter, essentially.
Right.
So you do go in cold and you do go in pure. So you can just enjoy stuff in a different way, which is why I think Argo, the year that it swept, the Oscars swept it so much because we'd never seen press.
Argo with Ben Affleck.
Had never seen anything like that by that cast and that crew and that director. And it was a real standout moment. By the time it got to the cinemas, people were so sick of it because it had shown to press so early that there was this huge... So you do get a bit of purity, I guess, sometimes.
Okay. Even with PRs going, hey, this is great.
They're not... they kind of can't say it until you've seen it, though, which is...
Oh,
so you're just like, okay. But yeah, I don't know. I'm a Netflix watcher. I'm very much on my laptop, on my telly watcher, so I kind of like stuff that works on small screen. So I would just kind of say, I don't know, yeah, it does work.
So what's the
so
score?
like 3 or 4, I guess.
No, it's yours.
I don't know.
It's your time to rate it.
3.5 maybe.
Yeah, go 3.5. Let's go in the middle of the two.
All right.
I don't think it loses much.
Adam.
I'd actually say the same, and the reason why I say 3.5 is because there are elements to it, like the ultraviolence, like the anal sex element to it, like the, sort of the nuances, which actually, you might not find the same comfort level, which is when you're sitting in the cinema. And to be able to watch it at home, even if it's passive, even if it's, sit down with some, some popcorn, shed popcorn, and just enjoy it, is actually very valuable. It might not change the way that you see the film, but, to rewatch it, you catch up on things that aren't immediately, sort of recognizable when you see it in the cinema, and you get to relive it. So yeah, I think it's a nice small screen movie.
Helen.
I'm going to give it a 3. I think it loses a little bit on the small screen because I think because it's so over the top and it's so ridiculous, it does deserve, if you can, to watch it on the biggest screen you've got at home, because it is bonkers and it is pretty full on. So I was like watching it through my little laptop speakers. I was a bit like, I probably could have done with a little bit more sound, or it made it a little bit more.
I think that's one place. I think that's one place you missed out, because and when you talk about bonkers, there's that scene where he's doing a donuts with Dizzy Rascal's Bonkers playing in the background.
You kind of get into it a little bit more.
We're talking about FreeBird as well.
Speakers are kind of vibrating by you.
Absolutely. I've got a pretty good Bluetooth speaker, so that's probably
what I'm.
Yeah, but you know what? I don't think this is fair though, because if you're going to watch it, hook into not even speakers, like headphones. Headphones will give you a much better appreciation of sound if you're watching on an iPad or an iPhone. I think this, if you're going to experience a movie, you have to take responsibility for experiencing the movie.
It's not my fault. My home cinema systems.
And also headphones
get on it
when you're lying down watching stuff.
Oh no, this wasn't headphones. This was just. I think that it works as a film. I think it works quite well if you've seen it maybe before at the cinema and you're watching it again. I think that's where the small screen score works. But I do think for me that I would have liked to have experienced it maybe
in the cinema,
louder, if not bigger. So I think it works as both. But if if you've got a projector and stuff like that, then have it big and loud.
You're seeing a different way, yeah.
I think I'm giving it 2.5. I think I enjoyed it a lot more in the cinema. I think the first couple of times, I think it was bigger and brasher. And
did you see it a couple of times in the cinema?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I just sometimes just think, I'll watch it again. So there wasn't anything particularly. Yeah, I think it's just the glossiness and the way it's been shot is really nice, and I think that works better on a larger screen for me than it does on a smaller one. Engagement score.
I think it's engaging. I don't think it's, like I said, it's not kind of a critical masterpiece. I just think it's a lot of fun, so I'm going to give it a 4.
Adam?
It's funny because the reason why we're talking about it is because it's engaging, and I think it's a very, very good film. But, did it hold me the whole way? Yes, it did. Would I watch it again? Would I do certain things differently if I watched it, sort of a second time? Again, it's that the way he wears his baseball cap. It really is just that awful moment when you see it in front of you. No, I what's it called? I'll give it a 3.5. I do think that, it's definitely worth a second watch if you are the kind of, sort of person who would enjoy it. I think that it was connective because it is a very good translation of the comic to the movie, but yeah, it's not perfect, but it's good. It's very
You
good.
keep mentioning the way he wears his baseball cap.
Yeah.
What about the way Sam Jackson wears his ascot?
Oh, don't even start. Don't even start. You know, what would you say, Kobe? The manners make the...
Manners maketh the man.
It applies, you know, when you're crossing the fourth wall.
Helen.
Well, as a first-time watcher, I was pretty engaged all the way through. I didn't even know what the runtime was. Normally, I'm pretty...
Oh, yeah. I mean, it does slip along quite quickly, doesn't it? Yeah.
You know, I didn't feel the need to check my phone on this one. So I'm going to give it a 4 because I did think the church scene was a bit excessive.
Okay. Were you bored at the end of it?
It was just a bit like, you've done the ultraviolets to get to the next bit. 4.
I'm going to give it a 2.5, I think. Really enjoyed it, but I just don't think you need to really pay attention until it gets to the bits where there's stuff happening.
Yeah, but you need to like watch it all. You can't go off and wash the bathroom and come
it's like
back.
saying I could.
Were you engaged
I could
the first
tune in
3
and tune
times
out.
you
Yeah,
watched
but
it?
I could happily be like chopping my vegetables up and it's just playing in the background, and then you're waiting for the good. It's all a good bit, but you don't really need to pay. You can absorb it without really seeing what's going on the screen. And then when things like the church scene, when Colin Firth is fighting in the pub, and there's some of the scenes where they're training and stuff like that, you pay attention to. But then intermittent to those, you can kind of just go.
Do you think that's what this movie boils down to?
Chopping vegetables.
Well, no,
Key
but
moments.
just key moments where, you know, I think there is an intelligent story behind it in the way that they craft the, you know, sort of what's going to be the attention grabbing elements of it. But, you know, I don't know. I would sort of say that, you know, engaging aspect of it, there is a bit of, you know, cerebralness to it. There is something there.
Outside the set pieces, that's when all the characters bond and there's, you know, whatever character development there is happens then. So I don't think it is all big set pieces and, you know, kind of music video flashiness.
But my point is that I don't think I need to be actually looking at the screen.
Right.
Yeah, but you've seen it 3 times now.
Oh, yeah, probably, yeah. But this is my score.
But it's
Correctamundo.
That's why you gave me that 4.
I just thought you'd maybe rate it a little bit higher. That's all.
Yeah, I'm quite surprised that my score is 2.
Surprise yourself.
Yeah, 2.9. But the overall score for everyone's 3.3, which I think is a fair overall score.
Right, fair score.
But maybe it's just the waning. I've seen it a few times now, so I'm happy being in the background. It's not like Ferris Bueller's Day Off or Pulp Fiction. If that's on, I'm sitting down there and watching it, glued to it from start to finish. But this is like, let's put it on and let's just something pop around.
Yeah. It's interesting you mentioned Ferris Bueller. Do you think that this kind of really crafted high action comic book film is like the new kind of 80s genre film? Do you think that's what, when we're like in 2020 looking back?
I think they will definitely go, comic books had a bit of an influence in the filmmaking.
Yeah, but it's interesting.
In the noughties and teens.
But just the beats of it, the beats are so...
It's like the turning of the page.
Yeah, so structured.
Sorry, let me just finish this delicious piece of popcorn. But no, honestly, kindred to that though is that, yes, you know, you expect a movie to look like it does based on the decade. And then as it starts to progress, you can say actually that the organic evolution that is to something else. So 80s to 90s, 90s to, you know, sort of noughties or millennials, or I don't even know what the hell I'm talking about right now, but it does become part and parcel of what you expect from a movie.
Yeah.
And I think that now, you know, particular to this is that, yes, there has to be some kind of exit strategy. There has to be something else that takes over. And this is actually the up end of it. The Kingsman actually represents probably the best that we're going to see of this particular era to a certain extent, because it's combining, you know, comics and action and movies and visual representations of how you'd, you know, sort of see certain scenes. And I think it's important to sort of recognize that this will be a snapshot of the time. Absolutely. Yeah.
On that wise note, I think we'll finish there, guys.
Thank you again for having us.
Thank you very
Kingsman
much.
scores 3.3, which is fairly decent. Yeah, general recommendation from all. So, guys, can you, Michelle and Adam, give us a sound off where you come from, how can we find you, and say goodbye.
Thanks again. You can find me on Twitter or Instagram at Shelley Johnson, CHELLE.
You don't know who I am. I don't know who you are, and you'll never find me. Just kidding. No, Adam Farina, Fixer International. Yeah, if you see me at an event, high five. But again, you don't know who I am.
Thanks for coming on, guys.
Cheers,
Thank
guys.
See you again.
Bye.
Cheers.
Bye.
thanks as always to our super special podcasting guests. Thank you. Always thanks. More thanks than ever to the awesome guys at GL Productions for editing this show. And thank you, as always, to the mighty people for providing the tunes. Don't forget to review us, subscribe to us on iTunes. If you want to say hello, we're on Twitter at Flixwatcher Pod, and full listings and information about our guests can be found on the website flixwatcher.tv. Thank you and bye.